Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Eliezer Malamed Shlita. Here we are, Yom Shlishi Pa'amayim Ki Tov. We continue our learning. We ask everyone to please continue davening for Chaylei Tzvi Yisrael, for Shalom L'Chalpatua Yisrael, and a safe return for Kfuras Yisrael of our final hostage being held. Please continue your tefillahs, and we dedicate our learning each day. Nishmat Shemoneh Esreh. Special dedication for today from one of our many loyal listeners. You can count our loyal listeners on one hand. I jest, of course. But today is the 19th Yahrtzeit of Harav Shmuel Tzvi ben Yosef Halevi. Neshama should have an Aliyah. We want to thank his family for sponsoring our learning today. Nishmat again on the 19th Yahrtzeit, Rabbi Seymour Brickman, Zichrono Livracha, who was a great contributor, great yid for Klal Yisrael. And perhaps one of the greatest marks that anyone could leave in this world is the legacy that you leave that follows, and seeing his children, grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren all following in his footsteps is truly the greatest tribute ever. So again, may his Neshama have an Aliyah. We thank the family for sponsoring our learning today. Again, Rav Shmuel Tzvi ben Yosef Halevi Z'l, Livracha, may his Neshama have an Aliyah. So we actually, with that, begin a new chapter today, Ta'ayos Haskaras V'Shikcha. So we're going to cover different aspects of what to do if you forget things in davening, or if you skip something, you forget to say something that you're supposed to say. My preview for this always is, if I could remember these halachas of what to say if I forget, then I should remember to say it to begin with, but that's a whole other thing. So the first thing is dilig tos v'hefzek b'tefillah. Hamadalig al achas mishmon esrei bracha shel tefillah samida lo yahrtzeit de mitzvah tefillah. So if a person skipped one of the brachas of Shemoneh Esreh, you just skipped one of them for whatever reason, then you're not Yahrtzeit the mitzvah of Shemoneh Esreh of davening. Va'af im shina seder habrachos, even if, let's say, you said the brachos out of order, you changed the order, limrosha b'pol amar eskul, and even though you actually empirically said all of the brachos, nevertheless, lo yahrtzeit echav aso, you're not Yahrtzeit your chov of davening Shemoneh Esreh. Because the men of the Great Assembly, when they established the nusach of Shemoneh Esreh, they had a method as to why the order should be as such. It was all relying on Psukim. It was all based on the Gemara and Megillah and other places, but they had an intention for the order, and if you change that order, then you're not Yahrtzeit. And also, someone who made a mistake in one of the blessings of Shemoneh Esreh in such a way that dealt with the main part of the bracha, meaning you didn't say the closing of the bracha, you didn't say the bracha at the end, the ending part of it. Or if you said something that has no applicability to it. So the common example that he gives here is, let's say you asked for rain in the summertime, when obviously we don't ask for rain in the summertime. There's a period. We just started saying here in Chutzlar, it's saying Talamater, so that's going to come up, these practical examples. But we consider it as if you have said nothing because you said something that's not actually the bracha. Im simas tfilaso, v'nizkar shedila gotoa ba'achas min habrachos. If a person finished Shemoneh Esreh and you realized and you remembered that you skipped or made a mistake in one of the blessings, alav lachzor lispalal, then you have to go back and say Shemoneh Esreh again properly. And even if you didn't take your 3 steps back from Shemoneh Esreh, if you finished all the supplications and you're about to take the 3 steps back, you should go back to the beginning of Shemoneh Esreh. Let's say you didn't finish Shemoneh Esreh, and you realize that you skipped or made a mistake on one of the 13 middle blessings. So alav lachzor osa bracha, you can go back to that actual bracha, mishom ve'elach yamshich li'yispal kaseder, and then you continue from there till the end. Even though he's repeating brachas that he already recited, we look at it as follows. Since the ones that you recited afterwards originally were out of order because you skipped one, so we don't consider this as you having been recited, and therefore one should go back to the part where he forgot, the part that he skipped, start from there, and then continue to the end, and this is not considered saying it out of order. If you made a mistake in skipping or an error in one of the first 3 or the final three brachos of Shemoneh Esreh, you have to go back to their beginning. Because in the first three blessings, it's one big topic. And the same applies to the final three. They're not individual requests as we have, let's say, in the 13 middle ones. Therefore, they are considered as one unit, as one request. If you make a mistake on one of them, we consider as you made a mistake on all of them, and therefore you have to go back to the beginning. If a person made an interruption in the middle of Shemoneh Esreh by speaking or by stopping, if the interruption was brief, then you could continue davening from where you left off. However, if it was a longer interruption, it was long enough, let's say, that in the time of your interruption, you'll be able to say the entire Shemoneh Esreh from the beginning to the end. In that instance, if it was that long, you have to go back to the beginning of Shemoneh Esreh. And some say it doesn't matter whether this interruption was on your own will or whether it was against your will, it was something that you couldn't control. Since, in any event, it was as long as it would take to recite the entirety of Shemoneh Esreh, therefore you should go back to the beginning. However, others hold that only if the hafsaka was, if the interruption was as a result of something against your will, something you couldn't control, then you go back. However, if you stopped and you knowingly stopped, then even if it's a longer pause, you can go back and continue from where you left off. A long note here he just mentions that what happens if someone speaks in the middle of Shemoneh Esreh intentionally. So here we have also a machlokas that's mentioned here. Again, it's worth looking at note 1. There are two different languages that we have for the bracha of Sim Shalom and Shalom Rav. If anybody ever davens Nisach Sfard and Nisach Hari, they say Shim Shalom even in the afternoon. Ashkenaz, if we ever have the ability for duchening, for Birchas Kohanim, or if we read Torah, then we say Sim Shalom, which explains why on a fast day at Mincha we say Sim Shalom, Uvishar HaTfilas Shalom Rav, and at the end we say Shalom Rav. So in the note here as well, quoting from the Ramah, Kuf Chav Zayin, he has the question about what happens if you say the wrong one. Let's say you say Shalom Rav at Shachris. I'll just read it to you. Im nizkar b'Shachris be'emtza bracha shehiz chalom Shalom Rav, kol zman shel simas bracha yachzer v'yisaken. As long as you haven't yet finished the bracha, you can go back and say Sim Shalom appropriately. Because the Shalom Rav language, as we know, is much shorter than the Sim Shalom. However, if the opposite happens, let's say in the afternoon, you said Sim Shalom instead of Shalom Rav, and you don't have to go back, because everything that you said in Sim Shalom includes everything that is in Shalom Rav as well. So by Chasidim, Nusach Sfard, etc., as we mentioned, they say Sim Shalom every single afternoon. Has to do with Birchas Kohanim, etc. Look at the note 2 at the end there. But for us, for we who daven in Nusach Ashkenaz, we say Shalom Rav in the afternoon. But again, this begins new chapter about what to do if we made mistakes in davening. The best is always to read out of a siddur, and the best is always to concentrate on what you're saying, and therefore you won't have to come on to these halachos. But we again want to thank our family for sponsoring our learning today. Nishmat Shmuel Tzvi ben Yosef Halevi on his 19th Yahrtzeit, Ms. Neshama have an Aliyah. Thank you all for listening. Please continue davening for Chali Tzvagan Yisrael, for Shalom Chol Tzvi Yisrael, return of our final hostage of Perez Yisrael, Nishmat San Daniel Shemoneh Esreh. Thank you so much for joining us. I believe tomorrow's going to be a milestone, maybe episode 600. We're getting close. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.